if you're seriously considering homeschooling.
How do I know they'll be successful? Hi, my name is Miss Andrea.
And I'm Mare.
This is Tea Time.
This is Tea Time.
We came across some really important homeschool questions.
One very common question, how do I convince my parents to let me homeschool? And then the flip side.
My child is asking to homeschool. How do I know they'll be successful?
Concerns that kids have, concerns that parents have, but as a family, maybe you're taking this moment in your lives to consider whether or not homeschooling is right for you.
And this is the right time of year to address them.
Absolutely.
Because we're planning for next year. Here's my thought. If the child says that they're happy, if the child is making progress, if it ain't broke.
Right.
If the child is not sure how they feel, now you need to look around and see if there's an environment that is going to work for that child. Because a discontented child could turn into a discontented classroom,
right?
Homeschool or public school. So if you're going to move them, you have to make sure that you're moving them into something
better
that you and them feel comfortable in. So
right.
Also, is what that child needs or what that child desires accessible?
Right. To that point, whether you are deciding that you're going to go to a traditional schooling environment because you've been homeschooling and you've decided, we've tried this, we're not doing this anymore. Or you have been in a traditional schooling environment and the goal is to start homeschooling. At the end of the day, one of the questions needs to be, where does the child want to be? Because here's the thing. As a parent, you may firmly believe that things are horrible at the school that they've been attending. You need to make a change for their benefit. If you don't convince your child to get on board with that, that's going to be an uphill battle the entire time that you're trying to educate your child.
It is.
We've seen it. We've seen students who have come out of a traditional schooling environment for one reason or another, who would really rather be back in that traditional schooling environment. And when they are forced into something that they don't want to do, then that can often become an insurmountable hurdle for everybody involved.
Well, there's also the child who thinks they know what they want, but they don't know.
Right.
Like they want that Disney high school experience,
right?
And they get to school and they're like,
wait, this isn't what I signed up for.
No one's singing. Where's the High School Musical? You know what I mean? And all they're getting is the schoolyard fights.
Right.
And they're like, no. And a lot of homeschoolers that do go into public school tap out at 3 months.
Right.
Because they're like, oh no, none of us.
Not at all what I thought it was going to be.
That.
And so to that end, this rapid fire in and out,
that's the worst. Out. You really have to think this out.
You can't just constantly be changing schooling environments in the middle of the school year. So during the summer is the time to really kind of explore these opportunities.
The holidays at worst.
And holidays are another time to do that. But it takes some time to adjust to whatever the new schooling environment is. Whether that's going from homeschooling to a traditional school environment, whether that's going from a traditional school environment to homeschooling, it's going to take time. And if you pull a student from a traditional schooling environment, you homeschool for 3 months and you throw them back into the traditional school environment because you're frustrated, they're frustrated, nobody's doing anything the way that it wasn't the perfect picture that anybody pictured. So they go back in and now they're 3 months behind. That's not going to serve anyone well.
It's going to domino out the year.
It is. And so, especially when you're dealing with a student at a high school level or a middle school level, that can be really hard to play catch back up and then get them graduated when they're supposed to be.
Well, speaking of catch back up, the most important thing, I think, if you're going to move them from homeschool to traditional school is making sure that they have the skills that they need and the discipline that they need to hang in that environment.
Do not expect a child who does not want to do work and who has no work ethic to suddenly develop a work ethic when you change their educational environment.
Yes. We're going to say this a few times.
If your child's not doing schoolwork for you in a homeschooling environment, no matter what they tell you,
it's not going to change.
They are not going to start doing schoolwork in a traditional school environment.
It's not going to be magic. That's not going to happen.
Alternatively, if they're not doing their schoolwork in a traditional school environment and you bring them home, don't expect that just because it's now one-on-one, they're all of a sudden going to develop a work ethic. That's a life skill. That's something that has to be taught. That's something that even with a 15, 16-year-old, may require warm thigh time.
Mm-hmm. So explain warm thigh time.
Oh,
what's happening right here?
There's a warm thigh right next to them. So it may mean that even if you're working from home, the work that they're doing is work that they're fully capable of doing all by themselves. So they don't need somebody to help instruct them on doing it. But if there's not a human presence literally sitting next to them, they're not going to do it. They'll wander off. They'll watch something on YouTube. They'll play a game. They'll, whatever it is that their particular proclivity is.
P.S. Don't let a brand new homeschooler go in the room and shut the door to do the schoolwork. They ain't doing it. Yes, I used bad grammar. They ain't doing it.
Also, if you have taken a child out of a traditional school environment and they do have a work ethic, keep them doing that work. Don't let them take that time off to not do anything, because good habits are real hard to develop, and once you break them, it's really difficult to get them back. And so if they've got those good habits, steer them towards something that's productive, whether that's a personal passion that they have, whether that's something that they want to hyperfixate on, or whether that's accelerating their educational journey. Steer them towards something. Don't let them just sit and not do, because then it's going to be really hard to get them back on track.
Yes. How do I convince my parents to let me homeschool? I get this question in my inbox a whole lot, and I follow up with questions because I believe in giving homework. So, 14, 15-year-old child, I'm dealing with some depression is usually where they start.
Right.
I'm very unhappy at school. I know people who homeschool, take online classes, or whose parents teach them at home. How do I convince my parents to join those ranks? And my questions to them are, how are you doing academically right now? Are you self-motivated? Do you do your homework? Do you read your assignments? Watch your videos? Or do you just sit in the classroom, absorb what you can, and roll a dice at test time?
Right.
Because if you cannot actively intake the information proactively and then give back the assignments without someone standing over you, you're not a candidate for homeschooling. So I ask those questions, and then I say, here's how you show your parents you want to homeschool. Show them your grades.
Yep.
If you're an AB student, that's a huge check mark right there, because it shows your parents that they're not going to have extra stress homeschooling you. If you are struggling in a subject, what you need to do is go online, Khan Academy, and reteach yourself that subject, do really well on your next test or two, and then bring that to your parent and say, I'm doing better because I self-taught.
Or I would even say, because here we are, we're in the summer, if you have your grades from the end of last year,
I know where you're going,
and so you didn't do well in math, you have a C or a D in math, and you sit down with Khan Academy and you go back and you retake that math course that you didn't do well in, learn what you can learn from Khan Academy. Love the ways, and we've talked about Khan Academy in the past. The videos work for some people. If you're not understanding what's being said
Crash Course
in
and other
video,
people doing the same math, but use Khan Academy to test through.
Go to YouTube and search whatever that topic is that you're struggling with, and let somebody else explain it to you. Because this is the thing about math. You can do math 5 or 6 different ways for every single problem.
Sometimes.
And so you may just need somebody else to explain it to you. So go through and do that course and show mastery on that course in Khan Academy and say, this is what I got at the traditional school. This is what I could do on my own.
And if we want to be real specific about that, so you got a D in algebra.
Right.
So you go into Khan Academy, you take the pretest.
Yep.
And it's going to say, D.
Yep.
So then you spend a month working your way through that course, and you come back and say, hey, Mom and Dad, D on report card, D pretest, B plus post-test. I think I'm a candidate for homeschooling.
Right.
Who's going to argue with that?
I mean, some parents might.
But that's how you convince your parents to let you homeschool, by showing them that you're self-motivated, that you're a self-starter, that you can self-teach, and that you just need their financial and emotional support.
Right.
And if you can do that, your parents are going to have a hard time arguing with that kind of success.
I would agree with that. So if you have a parent, my child now has come to me, they've asked for me to homeschool, and I want to make sure that I'm setting this up for success. I've done enough Googling about homeschooling. I know that I shouldn't just pull them from a traditional school environment, let them homeschool, try it, and if it doesn't work, put them back, because I know 3 months into the school year, they're going to be behind. So I don't want to do that. I want to make sure if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. We're going to set it up for success.
Do not survey all your relatives. If you want to get scared, if you want people harassing you, just don't do that. This is between you, your child, and their other parent.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it. Just as you should not ask the rest of your family what they think about homeschooling, do not delve into the message boards, the Reddits, the Facebooks, the everything else until you have decided for yourself how you want to approach this thing called homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seriously considering homeschooling, you need to understand your educational philosophy. You need to understand what your expectations are for your child. You need to understand who your child is, what their expectations are for the next step in their life. Once you're armed with that information, then feel free to go seek out the opinions online.
Have we done this video yet?
I don't know.
Let us know if you need that information.
If you would like for us to delve further into how online communities can work for you and
I wasn't
against
thinking
you,
that.
then
I was thinking,
let us know in the comments.
I was thinking, have we taught the people all the different educational styles and philosophies?
No, but we will do a video on that.
Yeah. Okay. So, once again, how is your child doing academically? Is your child an A student? Is your child a B student? Is your child an A-B student but with the occasional low grade due to some emotional things that are happening? Those are all candidates. If your child's a D student and when you say, hey, can you take out the trash, it's a 20-minute debate.
Maybe no.
No.
Maybe no.
No. Like, what's going to change? How are you going to change it? You can't go into homeschooling with an uncooperative child and thinking that all of a sudden they're going to cooperate.
Right.
Whew. And I've had so many parents come to me and say, my child failed and I'm going to homeschool them as punishment. What curriculum do I use? And I say, none. Don't do that. Education should never be a punishment.
Never.
So I'm sorry, I had a flashback and it did something to me there.
Similarly, it's not a good idea, and even though I have been guilty of this and I try to not, don't threaten a homeschooling child with sending them to school.
I did that all the time. But I knew my children did not want to go.
Right.
My children had dealt with some severe bullying. And if I said, okay, if this is where we're going to be, maybe we should go back to public school where there's more structure. And they'd be like, never mind. They would pull their souls back together for a full 6 months. Now, if you're making that threat weekly, you got a problem.
Right.
But I was only making that threat once or twice a year.
Right.
You know?
But also, it's different when you have a conversation and say, look, this seems to not be working.
Threats just aren't okay.
But saying, if you don't write that paper, I'm sending you the...
No.
Don't do that.
No, because the more you say it, the less of a incentive it becomes. So let me just backtrack and make sure that I'm answering this question properly. How do I know they'll be successful? If they're already an okay student or a good student, you just have to transfer those skills to the homeschool arena. Kids with good academic structure and routines do amazing.
They do.
In homeschooling. Amazing. Kids with lackadaisical educational habits struggle.
Right.
In homeschooling. Especially if you lean into a more relaxed, this is going to sound horrible, because I love the idea of a relaxed homeschool environment.
Right.
But if you take a relaxed kid and tell them to relax, they're going to be comatose. Like, you're not getting... Like we've squared relaxing.
Right.
And we're not getting anything out of that. So it's a balance. You know your child's going to be successful if they've already shown that they can be successful. Now, you feel a strong need to homeschool your child anyway, and they're barely making it.
Right.
What do? This is about you now setting up systems, pulling together resources to make sure your child is going to get that structure.
Right.
So that you can move forward, and hopefully they're 7th grade or below.
Right.
Because now you can take a year, get all the resources, the tutors, therapists.
Because here's the thing. the skills that we're talking about,
Mhm.
the motivation, the ability to teach yourself, the ability to stay, focused on a task and work through it, all of those are life skills. They're
Yeah.
all teachable.
Yeah.
If you are confident in teaching those life skills and you know that your child is lacking them,
Mhm.
start there.
Oh, speaking about you as a parent need to have these life skills.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's real hard
Mhm.
to transition into a homeschooling environment and expect that a child is going to discipline themselves if they're not seeing self-discipline modeled for them in the house.
Now, what people may not know about me is I do have a temper.
You do not give off a threatening aura.
I used to.
I accept the statement.
And so early.
But just on general principle, you don't give off a threatening
people
aura.
are like, oh, you're so cute.
None of the children in this building are afraid.
Nobody's scared of me.
Nobody's afraid of you. Nope.
My own children have never been scared of me.
Nope.
Strangers, however. So back in the day, that first year of homeschooling, my children were with me everywhere. Grocery store, mall, CVS, all those environments that press you.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I may or may not have gotten home after climbing up one side of a pharmacy clerk and back down the other. Looked at my children, put them back in the car, drove back to the pharmacy and apologized. Because you have to model the behavior that you want from your children. Mm-hmm. So, all that to say, you will find yourself changing yourself, right, to set your children up for success. And if you're like, this is how I am, this is how it's going to be, if there's no room for you to grow, there's not going to be room for your kids to grow. So we don't say any of these things to gatekeep.
Right.
We say these things so that you go into homeschooling with your eyes wide open, and you also leave homeschooling with your eyes wide open. None of these things are magic bullets without preparation and training, and then the emotional support that goes along with it.
And the resources for that preparation and training are widely available. They're available for free online. Mm-hmm. It's a question of more self-discovery than anything.
Yeah.
That's your gatekeeper.
Yeah.
That's your gatekeeper.
Because I'm serious. Homeschooling made me a teddy bear. And I was not. I'm still real firm. I still know what I want. I still stand up for myself and my adult children. But it softened me. Right. In a way that I wouldn't have expected. Because your children are always watching you, and you're like, oh, I don't need them to see that. Right. She doesn't need to be in this room right now.
The crux to how do I know we're going to be successful? The crux to how do I convince myself or my parents to homeschool? All of those things is more a journey of self-discovery than anything. Mm-hmm. There are skills that you're going to need. Do you have those skills? Can you develop those skills? Are you willing to put that work in? That's not something that the rest of the world can answer. That's not something that your friends and family can answer. It's questions that only you can answer. And the ones that you send to the kids that ask these questions, like those are key. Mm-hmm. If you are in a situation where you're not doing well in school, if you're in a situation where you're struggling in the environment that you're in, understand that there are some skills that you have to have. Can you teach yourself those skills? At the end of the day, that's the real question.
Can you be disciplined? Mm-hmm. Can you do 4 hours a day?
I mean, everybody can be disciplined, but are you willing to put the work in to do that?
That's it. There you go. So,
until next time.